You've watched them move through the world like they owned it, haven't you? There's a specific kind of chilling confidence in a person who believes they can take whatever they want, from whomever they want, without ever paying the bill. They treated people like disposable batteries, used up and tossed aside in their pursuit of the next high. But tonight, we're looking at the one debt that even a narcissist cannot lie their way out of. I see you, and I know how exhausting it has been to witness their reckless disregard for boundaries. You've probably spent nights wondering how they could be so careless, not just with your heart, but with their own life. It feels like they are playing a high-stakes game where everyone else carries the risk while they reap the rewards. But there is a silent, invisible consequence brewing behind that mask of total invincibility and power. We need to talk about the reality of the untouchable narcissist. They live in a fantasy world where they are immune to the laws of nature and the rules of society. This sense of entitlement often leads them down a dark path of impulsive, frequent encounters, where intimacy is stripped of its humanity and turned into a simple transaction of ego. They never imagined that their hunt for constant validation would lead to a dead-end street. Have you ever noticed that look in their eyes when they feel they've successfully deceived someone? It's a flicker of triumph. They believe they are the smartest person in every room, capable of outrunning any shadow they cast. But as they seek out more and more free connections to fill the hollow ache inside them, they are unknowingly inviting a guest that doesn't care about their charm. A guest that doesn't listen to gaslighting. This isn't just about a physical ailment. It's about the psychological collapse that happens when a narcissist is forced to face a reality they cannot manipulate. They've built their entire identity on being superior and indestructible. So, what happens when their own body begins to tell a truth they've spent a lifetime denying? It is a slow-burn realization that is as terrifying for them as it is revealing for those who survive them. You might have felt small in their presence, like your needs and your safety were just obstacles in the way of their desires. They made you feel like you were the one being difficult for asking for basic respect or transparency. But the truth is, their freedom was always a prison of their own making. Their frequent, reckless pursuits weren't a sign of confidence, but a desperate, frantic run from the void that lives within their chest. Tonight, we are peeling back the layers of that secret knowledge they hope the world never finds out. We're discussing the moment the hunter becomes the hunted, not by another person, but by the very consequences they laughed at. It's a cinematic descent from the height of their arrogance to the cold floor of biological reality. And for the first time, you are going to see them through a lens of absolute, unflinching, grounded truth. It's hard to wrap your head around the level of entitlement it takes to treat other human beings as if they carry no weight. They treat bodies like playgrounds and intimacy like a sport, never stopping to consider the lingering traces they leave behind, or the ones they pick up. They truly believed they could keep spinning the wheel forever without it ever landing on a number they didn't choose. But the wheel is finally slowing down. I want you to take a deep breath and settle in, because what we are about to uncover is heavy, but it is also deeply empowering. Seeing the unbeatable narcissist finally lose their grip on their own narrative is a turning point for any survivor. It proves that despite the chaos they caused, there is a natural order to things. There is a point where the mask falls so hard it shatters into pieces that no amount of lying can ever fix. The question we are answering today is, what happens when the narcissist meets a force they can't charm, bribe, or intimidate? We are looking at the ultimate biological accountability that comes from a life lived without empathy or caution. By the end of this, you won't just understand the disease they never saw coming. You will understand why your own path of integrity was the only way to truly survive a world they tried to break. Why do they do it? Why the endless cycle of new faces and reckless choices? It's because for a narcissist, intimacy is never about connection. It's about conquering. They aren't looking for a partner. They are looking for a mirror that reflects a more powerful version of themselves. To them, frequent, unattached encounters are a way to prove they are still the apex predator in the room, above the rules that govern everyone else. They suffer from a profound God complex. They honestly believe that their specialness acts as a magical shield against the mundane problems of the common people. While you worry about health, safety, and the long-term impact of your choices, they are high on the dopamine of the chase. They view caution as a weakness. In their mind, they are so genetically superior that things like viruses or chronic conditions are for others. This recklessness is actually a symptom of their inner chaos. Deep down, the narcissist is terrified of being alone with their own thoughts. The free sex they pursue so relentlessly is just another distraction, a way to numb the sound of their own emptiness. But because they lack a moral compass, they don't see the people they interact with as humans. They see them as tools. And you don't worry about the health of a tool, do you? Imagine a person standing in the middle of a burning building, convinced they won't get burned because they've decided they are made of stone. That is the narcissist's approach to their physical lifestyle. They have a complete lack of future sight when it comes to negative consequences. They live entirely in the now of their own gratification. This psychological blindness is exactly what leads them to the one trap they can't see. They use their sexuality as a primary tool for manipulation and control. It's how they lure in new supply and how they devalue the people who actually care for them. By being frequent and free with their affections, they create a false sense of abundance. It makes you feel like you're lucky to have them, while they secretly treat everyone as replaceable. But this lifestyle creates a massive, unmanaged trail of risk they ignore. To a narcissist, the idea of a deadly disease is something that happens to the losers they've already discarded. They project their own flaws onto everyone else, so they convince themselves that only unclean or bad people get sick. Since they believe they are fundamentally good or perfect, they simply don't believe it's possible for them to be affected. It is a terrifying form of denial that borders on the delusional. Think of their ego as a massive balloon. It looks impressive, but it's incredibly thin. They spend all their energy puffing it up, and they can't afford to let even a tiny bit of reality in. If they acknowledged the risk of their frequent encounters, they would have to acknowledge their own mortality. And a narcissist cannot handle the idea of their own ending. So, they just keep blowing into the balloon harder and harder every day. Their sense of entitlement extends to the bodies of others. They feel they have a right to pleasure without responsibility. This is why they often lie about their history or their health to get what they want. They don't care about the wake of destruction they leave behind because they never intend to look back. They are the ultimate hit-and-run personalities, assuming the road behind them will just magically clean itself up. They are also addicted to the risk itself. There is a psychological thrill in doing something they know they shouldn't and getting away with it. Every time they engage in reckless behavior and wake up the next day feeling fine, their ego grows. They think, see? I'm different. I'm special. This reinforcement loop makes them even more dangerous because it pushes them to take even bigger risks, convinced that the bill will never come. But here is the secret they can't handle. The human body is a ledger. It doesn't care about your social status or how many people you've convinced of your lies. It records every choice, every exposure, and every bit of neglect. The narcissist's brain is so busy protecting their ego that it forgets to protect their biology. They are walking toward a cliff with their eyes closed, laughing at the wind, never imagining the sudden stop. The shift always starts with a flicker of doubt, a shadow in the mirror that they try to blink away. For someone who has built their entire identity on being untouchable and physically superior, a simple, unexplained symptom feels like a betrayal by their own body. They've spent their lives manipulating people's minds, but now they are faced with a biological reality that doesn't care about their charm or their elaborate excuses. At first, they do what they do best. They lie. Not just to others, but to themselves. They tell themselves they're just tired or stressed from dealing with all the toxic people in their life. They double down on their grooming and their performance of health. They might even become more reckless, trying to prove to themselves that they've still got it. But the symptoms don't listen to their internal monologue. They stay. This is the moment the narcissist's theater begins to fail. They go from being the confident hunter to a frantic, secretive patient. The panic is quiet at first, a cold sweat in the middle of the night. They start searching for answers online, trying to find a way to make the truth disappear. They look for a quick fix, or a way to blame someone else for whatever is happening to them. Even now, they are looking for a scapegoat. Imagine the scene. They are sitting in a waiting room, surrounded by the common people they once looked down upon. For the first time, they aren't the star of the show. They are just another number. The doctor's office is the one place where their specialness carries no weight. The blood work doesn't care about their charisma. The lab results don't care about their influence. The mask is starting to slip, and it's heavy. When the words are finally spoken, the diagnosis they never imagined, the narcissist experiences a profound ego death before the physical one even begins. Their brain tries to find a loophole. They might argue with the doctor, demand a second opinion, or claim the equipment is faulty. They are trying to gaslight a biological fact. But the silence that follows is the loudest thing they've ever heard. The game is finally up. Then comes the anger. Not a healthy anger, but a cold, vitriolic rage directed at everyone they've ever known. They start mentally scanning their frequent list, trying to decide who did this to them. They don't see their own choices as the cause. They see themselves as the victim of someone else's malice. They are already planning their next move, how to hide this, or how to use it to get even more pity and supply from you. But then they realize the physical cost. If they can no longer use their body as a tool for lure and conquest, what are they? A narcissist's currency is often their looks or their vitality. When that starts to fade, they lose their ability to attract new supply. They are like a predator that has lost its teeth. The realization that they might become undesirable is often more painful to them than the actual threat of the disease. They might try to hoover you back during this time, using their health as a weapon to make you feel guilty. They'll act like a wounded bird, hoping you'll forget all the free encounters they had while they were ignoring your existence. They want you to be the nurse for the person who didn't care if you lived or died. It's the ultimate test of your boundaries. They are trying to trade their consequence for your compassion. Watch how they treat their secret during this stage. They become incredibly paranoid. They think everyone is whispering about them. Every glance from a stranger feels like an accusation. Their world, once a boundless playground, has shrunk down to the size of a pill bottle or a medical chart. They are trapped in the very body they neglected, and for a narcissist, being trapped is the most terrifying experience imaginable. The turning point is the total loss of control. They've spent their life as the director of a play where they were the hero. Now, the script has been taken away from them. They are forced to play a role they hate, the patient, the vulnerable, the mortal. And as they look at the wreckage of their frequent lifestyle, they finally see the one thing they never believed in, that actions actually have an end. And this is the end. When the diagnosis finally lands, the narcissist's world doesn't just crack, it implodes. They have spent years treating their health and their partners as infinite resources, never imagining that their reckless pursuit of pleasure would carry such a permanent price tag. Suddenly, the person who was always the life of the party is the one hiding in the shadows, terrified that their secret life has finally caught up to them. The consequences are deeply personal and devastatingly public. They can no longer maintain the perfection they worked so hard to project. Their skin, their energy, their very presence begins to reflect the decay they've tried to ignore. People start to notice the change. The whispers they feared become a reality. Their social circle, built on shallow admiration, starts to evaporate as soon as they are no longer useful. They are faced with the ultimate irony. The very freedom they bragged about has become their prison. The frequent encounters they used to boost their ego are now a source of deep shame and terror. They have to face the people they've potentially harmed, and for a narcissist, admitting they were wrong is physically painful. They would rather let a fire burn the whole house down than admit they were the one holding the match. This is where the monstrous side of the narcissist truly comes out. In their collapse, they may try to intentionally harm others, feeling that if they have to go down, everyone should go down with them. Or, they might completely disappear, abandoning their responsibilities and their family to hide in their own misery. There is no grace in their struggle, only a frantic, messy attempt to avoid the mirror of their own actions. The people who truly love them, the ones they pushed away for the free thrill, are often the ones they turn to in their final moments of desperation. But the tragedy is that they still can't be honest. They want the comfort without the confession. They want the support without the accountability. They are still trying to manipulate the people they've betrayed, using their illness as the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. But the world doesn't work that way anymore. Your eyes are open. You see the pattern. You see that this wasn't a mistake or a tragedy. It was an inevitable result of a lifestyle built on the exploitation of others. The consequences aren't just medical, they are spiritual. They are losing their grip on the only thing they ever valued, their reputation. Without that, they feel like they are already dead. They are a hollow shell. They might try a deathbed conversion of sorts, acting like they've found a new perspective. But look closely. Is it remorse, or is it just more supply? Are they sorry for what they did, or are they just sorry they got caught by their own biology? Usually it's the latter. A narcissist's change is almost always a survival tactic, not a transformation of the heart. Even in their collapse, they are still looking for the win. The weight of their secrets becomes a physical burden. Every doctor's visit, every medication, every symptom is a reminder of the lies they told. They are haunted by the what-ifs. What if they had stayed loyal? What if they had been honest? But those questions are for people with a conscience. For the narcissist, the only what-if is, what if I hadn't been caught? That is the true darkness of their condition. As they lose their physical currency, they lose their power. They find themselves alone in rooms they used to command. The silence is deafening. They realize that they didn't build a life, they built a house of cards on a windy beach. And the tide is coming in. The deadly disease is just the final wave that washes it all away, leaving nothing but the wet sand and the memory of someone who could have been so much more. This is the harsh, unflinching reality of the narcissist's endgame. They lived as if they were gods, and they are dying as if they were nothing. There is no safe place for them because they've destroyed every bridge they ever crossed. They are the architects of their own isolation, finally forced to sit in the rubble of their own making. It is a cinematic tragedy that was written by their own hand, one reckless choice at a time. There is a deep, quiet peace that comes when you finally stop trying to save someone who was determined to destroy themselves. You've watched the storm, you felt the wind, and maybe you even got hit by some of the debris. But you are still standing. The narcissist's collapse isn't your burden to bear, and their consequences aren't your fault. You are finally free from the weight of their secret life and its costs. I want you to understand that your safety and your health are sacred. While they were playing with fire, you were building a life of integrity. That integrity is your shield. It's what kept you from being dragged down into the abyss with them. You don't have to feel guilty for being the one who survived. You don't have to feel mean for maintaining your boundaries. You are simply choosing life over their path of destruction. Healing starts when you realize that the narcissist was never special. They were just reckless. Their power was an illusion fueled by your empathy and their own lack of fear. Now that the fear has finally caught up to them, the illusion is gone. You can see them for what they really are, a cautionary tale. A reminder that a life lived without truth, without empathy, and without responsibility is a life that eventually fails. You might feel a lingering sadness for the person you thought they were. That's okay. That's your humanity speaking. But don't let that sadness turn into a reason to go back. The person you loved was a mask. The person who made those reckless choices is the reality. You are mourning a ghost, but you are living for yourself. Take that love you gave them and turn it inward. You are the one who deserves that care and that devotion. The deadly disease of narcissism is the belief that you can take without giving and live without consequences. They lived that lie to the very end. But you know the truth. You know that every action matters and that intimacy is a gift, not a hunt. This knowledge is your superpower. It will guide you toward people who value you, who protect you, and who are capable of the kind of honest connection a narcissist will never know. Imagine a future where your life is not defined by their drama. A future where you wake up and the first thought isn't about their health, their lies, or their moods. That future is here. You've walked through the fire and come out with a clarity that most people never find. You know the value of your own soul, and you know how to protect it. You are no longer the victim of their story, you are the hero of your own. The narcissist is left with their secrets, but you are left with the light. You have the ability to build, to heal, and to love again, this time with your eyes wide open. Their collapse was inevitable, but your recovery is a choice you make every single day. Choose yourself. Choose the truth. Choose a life where you never have to worry about the shadows catching up to you, because you are walking toward the sun. As the credits roll on this chapter of your life, let the weight fall off your shoulders. You've done enough. You've cared enough. You've survived enough. The narcissist has met their match in the one thing they couldn't control, the truth of their own body. Let them deal with that reality while you step out into the fresh air of a world that is finally, beautifully yours. You are safe. You are whole. You are done with them. Never forget that your empathy was never a weakness. It was the very thing they tried to steal because they couldn't produce it themselves. They are the ones who are truly impoverished. They had the world in their hands and threw it away for a handful of empty thrills. You kept your heart, and in the end, that is the only thing that actually matters. You won the only game that was ever worth playing, the game of being human. You are the one who walked away with your soul intact, while they are left to face the hollow echoes of a life built on exploitation. Their greatest fear wasn't just a disease, it was the realization that they are ultimately mortal and alone in a world they refuse to love. Remember this, your empathy was never a weakness, it was the very thing that kept you whole. The only thing truly terminal in this story was their inability to see you. You've watched them move through the world like they owned it, haven't you? There's a specific kind of chilling confidence in a person who believes they can take whatever they want, from whomever they want, without ever paying the bill. They treated people like disposable batteries, used up and tossed aside in their pursuit of the next high.